You know that moment, right? You're waiting for your coffee, standing in line at the grocery store, maybe just waking up in the morning, and your thumb does this little dance across your phone screen. Unlock, swipe, tap, and there it is, your bank balance, staring back at you like some kind of digital oracle. Maybe you checked it yesterday. Maybe you checked it an hour ago. Maybe you already know, down to the cent, exactly what number's going to appear, but you look anyway. And if this sounds familiar, if you're someone who checks their bank account daily or even multiple times a day, I want you to know something. You're not being paranoid, you're not being obsessive, and you're definitely not alone. What you're doing is actually a fascinating window into how your brain processes uncertainty, control, and safety in a world that often feels like it's spinning just a little too fast. Let me tell you what's really happening here, because it's not what most people think. The conventional wisdom says that people who check their accounts constantly are either anxious about money, bad at managing it, or both. And sure, sometimes that's part of the story, but the psychology behind this behavior runs so much deeper and honestly so much more interesting. Your brain isn't broken when it sends you back to that banking app over and over again. Your brain is actually doing exactly what it was designed to do. It's just doing it in a world your ancestors never had to navigate. Think about it this way. For most of human history, resources were tangible. You could see your grain stored in clay jars, count your livestock in the pen, feel the weight of coins in your hand. Your brain evolved to feel safe when it could monitor resources directly, when it could see and touch and know with certainty what you had. But now your entire financial life exists as numbers on a screen, abstract representations of value that can shift while you sleep, while you work, while you're doing absolutely nothing at all. A subscription charge appears out of nowhere. A payment takes 3 business days to clear. Your paycheck deposits at some mysterious hour in the early morning. Money has become invisible, and that invisibility creates something your brain really, really doesn't like: uncertainty. And here's where it gets fascinating. There's this concept in psychology called the uncertainty reduction theory, and it tells us that humans are hardwired to seek information that reduces ambiguity about situations that matter to us. When something is important and unclear, we feel this gnawing discomfort, this cognitive itch that demands to be scratched. And what could be more important, more tied to your survival and security, than knowing whether you have enough resources to make it through? Every time you check that balance, you're not just looking at numbers, you're answering a question that your ancient brain is screaming at you. Are we safe? Do we have enough? Can we survive? The really interesting part is that this behavior creates what researchers call an intermittent reinforcement loop, the same psychological mechanism that makes slot machines so addictive. Sometimes when you check your account, something has changed. Maybe your paycheck landed. Maybe that pending charge finally cleared. Maybe someone paid you back. Your brain gets a little hit of resolution, a tiny dopamine reward for checking. But here's the thing about intermittent reinforcement: it's most powerful when the reward is unpredictable. You don't know when something will change, so you keep checking just in case. It's the same reason you refresh your email, scroll through social media, or keep glancing at your phone waiting for a text. Your brain has learned that sometimes checking gives you new information, and that sometimes is enough to keep the behavior going. But let's dig even deeper, because there's another layer here that people don't talk about enough. Checking your bank account is also an act of control in a world where so many things feel wildly out of your control. You can't control the economy, you can't control inflation, you can't control what your employer pays you or whether an unexpected expense is going to land in your lap tomorrow. But you can control knowing. You can control having the information. And in psychology, this is huge. The perception of control, even if it's just control over awareness rather than outcomes, significantly reduces stress and anxiety. Studies have shown that people who feel they have control over their environment, even in small ways, cope better with uncertainty than those who feel powerless. So every time you check that balance for the third time today, what you're really doing is exercising agency. You're telling yourself, I may not be able to change this number right now, but at least I know what it is. I'm not being blindsided. I'm paying attention. I'm in control of my awareness. And honestly, that's not pathological. That's adaptive. That's your brain trying to create a sense of stability in an inherently unstable situation. Now, there's also something deeply social happening here that we need to acknowledge. We live in a culture that has completely transformed the relationship between money and identity. Your bank balance isn't just a number anymore, it's become entangled with your sense of worth, your feelings of adequacy, your social standing. We're bombarded with messages about financial success, about having your life together, about the need to be stable and secure and always climbing upward. And social media has made everyone's highlight reel visible, creating this constant comparison game where you're measuring your financial reality against everyone else's carefully curated illusion of prosperity. When you check your account, you're not just monitoring resources, you're checking in on how you measure up, how you're doing in this game that society has convinced you matters desperately. And the thing is, your brain doesn't always distinguish between physical survival threats and social survival threats. The same anxiety circuits that would fire if you were running out of food can fire when you feel like you're falling behind financially, even if you're objectively fine. It's what researchers call the social comparison effect, and it's exhausting. But here's what I find most beautiful about all of this, most human. The fact that you check your account so often isn't a sign that you're failing at life. It's actually evidence that you care. It means you're engaged with your reality, that you're trying to be responsible, that you're attempting to stay on top of something that matters. The people who never check their accounts, sometimes they're blissfully unbothered and genuinely secure, sure, but sometimes they're avoiding, detaching, pretending the problem doesn't exist. Your vigilance, even when it tips into compulsion, comes from a place of wanting to do right by yourself and maybe the people who depend on you. The question isn't really whether you should stop checking your account so much. The question is whether that checking is serving you or whether it's just feeding the anxiety without actually helping you feel more secure. Because here's the truth. Information is only powerful when you can act on it. If checking your balance 20 times a day leads you to make different choices, to budget better, to catch errors, to feel genuinely more prepared, then maybe it's working for you. But if you're checking compulsively, getting that little spike of stress every time, and then doing nothing differently, then you're just rehearsing anxiety. You're training your brain to associate that banking app with cortisol rather than clarity. So maybe the real insight here is about finding that middle ground, that place where you're informed without being consumed, where you're aware without being obsessive. Maybe it's about checking with intention rather than reflex, about asking yourself what you're really looking for each time you pull up that app. Are you looking for information that will help you make a decision? Or are you just looking for reassurance that the world hasn't ended in the last 45 minutes? Because at the end of the day, your bank account is just one measure of security, and not even the most important one. The real security, the kind that your daily checking can't quite capture, comes from knowing you can adapt, that you've handled unexpected things before and you'll handle them again, that your worth isn't in those numbers. The numbers matter, yes, but they're not you. They're just data. And you're the one interpreting that data, making meaning from it, deciding what it says about your life and your future. So if you're someone who checks their account every day, I want you to be gentle with yourself about it. Understand that it's coming from a very human place, from ancient brain circuits trying to navigate a modern problem. And maybe, just maybe, start asking what else you need to feel secure beyond the numbers. Because I think you'll find that peace doesn't come from checking more often. It comes from trusting yourself to handle whatever you find when you check.